Now, quickly, how did you come to the decision to actually enter into the Rwandan market?
Yes, the fact is that we're already present in the EAC, so we already set up in Nairobi, and we really looked for a strategic hub to position our administrative offices. And therefore, Kigali offers a great business environment, also a very great pool of talent. So we decided Kigali might be a very good hub for us to really strategically position ourselves here in order to serve our clients even better.
Now, we understand that Amena, of course, links our private and public sector with global foreign direct investment. Maybe we should actually get a look into this particular conversation. Where and how much are we looking at that you've already done?
Yes, exactly. So basically, as you said rightly, we're supporting companies to access the markets in particular sub-Saharan Africa. We're established in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and I'm happy to say since January this year also in Kigali. So what we really do is to support those companies to get a foot into the door and also do business on the continent because there's so much opportunity and we see a lot of demand coming from Europe towards the African markets. So we're talking to what we call in Germany the mid-sized companies who are the family-owned businesses who would like to establish a presence over here. Is it export, a joint venture, or even establishing manufacturing facilities? That's what we are basically where we are the chain between the local companies and the local markets.
Holger, of course, when we look at numbers from last year, much of the foreign direct investment that was coming into East Africa really dropped very, very steep. But also, we still saw a significant amount of it coming to economies like Rwanda. But tell me, what do you think governments, and of course this is part of what you do, should do better to attract even more FDIs into the economy?
Yeah, well, I believe we're on a good way. We're still starting, particularly when we talk about European investment, from a very small scale. To give an example, current exports from Germany to the entire African continent are just at 2%. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to capture. If you look at governments, and I think particularly in Kigali, if you look at the RDB, for instance, who are really trying to enhance the business environment, what they're doing very well is to do two things. One is they are looking into increasing the ease of doing business in the country, so it's very easy to set up in the country.
Currently standing at a 29 worldwide.
Imagine. So, based on that, and also, for a company to come and step their foot into the door, into the country, it's very important to have a safe environment to do business in, right? So if you invest in your money, you would like to have your money to be safe, right? And then Kigali and Rwanda particularly are a very nice destination for those countries to do that, and in order to then venture out into the wider region. Because the EAC, as an example, is a very well-connected community, particularly in comparison to all the other trade agreements that we have right now. However, if you're looking at the overall Africa Free Trade Agreement, which has just been announced last year, that will even catalyze the entire development, and that's what we are trying to capture, and that's what we're also trying to support our clients to benefit from.
When you said in the second response, you mentioned something there to do with investment from Europe is rather very small when it comes to African nations. Do you say this is on the back of, say, policy frameworks that are not in place to support the kind of investments, or do you necessarily say that it's on the back of maybe political crisis that we're seeing every now and then in some of the economies here in Africa?
Well, I would say it feeds into the general picture companies have when they first hear about, let's say, African markets.
All right.
And so what we are really trying to do is to advocate about what the opportunities are on the ground. That's why we only work with local staff members and also local teams in order to really foster and get hold of that momentum, which is definitely there. As an example, the European Union just announced recently that they're going to increase their Africa budget by 20% starting in 2021. Up to 2027. The German government, Chancellor Merkel, announced last year in the G20 summit in Berlin that she is spending another 3 billion euros on developing and enhancing the business and investment climate on the continent together with the African governments. So I think that's that momentum, that's really what we're trying to capture.
Just the other day I was speaking to Koen from the European Union External Service, and he was talking more about the EU and Africa alliance, of course. Tell me, when you see something like this coming into play, do we necessarily get to see more on the back of such programs like maybe economic development or even more FDIs coming into Africa?
I certainly believe so, definitely. I mean, you know, last year, from our company at least, we had a very strong year last year, and we really would like to build on that momentum. And there we can see we're coming, as I said, from a very small base, but you know, the opportunities that we have, and that we see also in the markets of companies that are already doing business in Africa, their returns on investments are extremely high. Certainly, you take a certain risk, but we always say there's no profit without risk. Right.
In your point of view, what do you see as the biggest target that you know, investors from Europe are looking at currently from maybe emerging markets here in Africa?
Yeah, as we are particularly talking to companies that are mid-sized companies, so we're not talking about the Fortune 100 companies. So VW, of course, you know, let's say we're happy that they're there. What we are targeting now is, let's say, the entire supply chain. Right, so a lighthouse project like VW attracts all the supply chain companies to also come and venture into the country. What we definitely see is emerging, and also the demand is very high, talking about food manufacturing. You know, everything around that supply chain as well is packaging as well. Agriculture products, agriculture machinery. So there are various sectors that really raised attention overseas, but also locally, and we do see that's a lot of development happening right now.
Rwanda is doing significantly good at this particular moment when it comes to foreign direct investment, and they have rather, you know, interesting policies when it comes to that, and of course the ease of doing business has facilitated growth. But tell me, with you entering the economy, coming into the country, how do you see yourself being significant, or what do you see as you're bringing to the table? Something new.
Definitely. I think what's really unique with our approach is that, you know, we are coming as a European, as a German company into Rwanda, meaning we are talking to our companies at our home markets, whereby we have our local team, which we are currently setting up in Rwanda, which we are using to foster that development. So meaning we're really the chain between the foreign investor and the local market. So I think what we can bring to the table is the intercultural exchange between the two, and also to support both sides of doing much more better business together, and already in that phase then enhance the development of the economy locally.